And welcome, and the camera for some reason is on the ceiling. Let me give it a command here. Okay, now camera, thanks. Thanks for Stuka Joe here for an impromptu appearance. We got 10 viewers, welcome. I didn't announce this because my internet was out this whole day. So I said, I'm not gonna do a live show, but then it came back like an hour ago and it's been stable. So welcome everybody, welcome to the show. And we have today, DD Odd. And we also have John Halley. How you doing, John? And we got some more people. And today's also a weird day because we're not showcasing a war game, even though I announced that I was going to showcase a war game. And let me give you just an idea of what happened. There is a game that I'm going to be covering, which, let me see where I put it. Oh, here it is. Okay. And it's I'll be doing a video on it soon. This is Land and Freedom. And this is a game about the Spanish Civil War designed by Alex Knight and published by Blue Panther. And it's I think it's the first game that Blue Panther publishes for its own brand, because as you know, Blue Panther publishes games, produces the physical games for Holland Spiel, White Dogs Games, and other publishers. So I just received the game, I was reading the rules, and I wanted to play it. It's a 3-player game. You can play with less than 3 people. I wanted to play it, but I haven't been able to play it. And it's the type of game that has very unique mechanics that I want to be able to play it before I show it to you. So I hope to play it this week, and I'll show it to you next week. And we also have with us Mark W. Hello, Mark. Welcome. But today, I'm going to show you a game that, even though it is not a war game, it is a historical game. And I like games that recreate history in one way or another. And this one, I got to play it last night, and I enjoyed it very much. So this is Votes for Women. This is a game about the American women's suffrage movement. It's the fight for women to obtain the constitutional right to vote in the United States in federal, state, and local elections. And it covers a period of 1848 to 1920. And I played this game last night with my wife. Of course, she was the suffragist, and I was the opposition. And I'm happy to report the opposition won. No, but I won the game in the last state that was voted for, Rhode Island. And Rhode Island rejected the 19th Amendment, and that was the 13th state to reject it. And you'll see that in this game, in order for the suffragists to win, they have to make sure that Congress passes the 19th Amendment, and then it goes to the states. And because it's a constitutional amendment, it needs 3/4 of the votes to ratify the amendment for it to pass into law. And in this case, it needed 36 states, and only 35 did it. Later, we discovered we were playing wrong with one rule that could have resulted in another outcome. But that's you know how it is. The first time you play a game, you always screw something up. So that is the game that we played last night, Votes for Women. Now, before we continue, I'm gonna for completeness, we're gonna show the contest rules because we have our 2 giveaways today. So let's go to the contest rules and I'll be right back. Participation is limited only to individuals in the United States and Puerto Rico. To participate, write the keyword shown during the live broadcast in the comments section. 1 winner per prize will be selected randomly during the broadcast. And within 24 hours, the winner must send an email to stukajoe@gmail.com stating the winner's YouTube handle and shipping address. An email with a verification code will be sent to the winner, and the winner must enter the verification code in the comments section of the giveaway video. And upon winner confirmation, the prize will be mailed to the winner's address. Okay, and today's game that we will be giving out is Jacobite Rising by Compass Games. I have it right here. Let me see if I can get some space for it so that you can take a look at it. It's a pretty substantial game in terms of components. Let's focus. Here's the box. This is one of those 3-inch boxes. A very hefty game. It's you have the 3 boxes based on the Commands and Colors system, designed by Richard Borg. But this one was designed by Richard Borg. Probably it is also. Here's the back of the box. You see the typical blocks, the cards, and let's see the ratings here for the game. And you see number of players 2, 60 to 90 minutes, complexity, what's that? 6 of 10. Solitaire suitability 4, but I think you can use the CDG solo method or solo system from GMT with this one. I haven't played this one with the solo method. I haven't played it, but it's very similar to Napoleonics, and Napoleonics is one that GMT is going to come out this year with Volume 2. So you may be able to play this one by just transposing the rules. So that is Jacobite Rising. And in order to participate, you write in the comments section, #Jacobite. #Jacobite, and you will be participating. And we got some more of the usual suspects. Magnum from Sweden, welcome. We got Octavian, Justin Penwith. We've got Gaming with Garavaglia, welcome. St. Louis Keith. And of course, Diod. He's participating here. And we have William also from Ontario, Canada. So I think, let's see, John. I know. That's a good one. You know, I'm inclined to, but yeah, I know. Maybe some other time. Yes, I know. This is a wargaming channel, but this game is pretty special. The one I'm going to show to you. So let's say goodbye for now to Jacobite Rising, so that we can continue with the showcase. And now let's give our game today a proper showcase introduction before we start. And then we will begin our presentation. We also have Groucho Marx. Nice to see you. So let's go to the showcase intro. Okay, here we have it. Votes for Women. Now, this is the second game by Fort Circle Games. This particular game is designed by Tory Brown. And you have her name there. And Fort Circle Games is a company that came into play with their first game that we also have here, which is The Shores of Tripoli, a game that was very well received, a new type of card-driven game. It's light in rules, but not on strategy and decisions, with a small footprint. If you remember, to show a picture back here of the game, it has a very small map board, few pieces, very nice cards. It plays fast, and I think some of us appreciate games that you can play in one sitting. So that's Shores of Tripoli. So this is now Fort Circle's second game, and it's not a war game, but it's a historical game, and it uses mechanics that are similar to those of 1960, The Making of the President, in terms of placing the cubes, or what is akin to the influence on the particular areas of the map, which are states. So let's take a look at the components. And here we see the game's map. It's a map of the United States. It only shows 48 of the states. Now, Hawaii and Alaska are not here. You have 48 of the states, and they are divided into 6 regions that are color-coded, which you see here. So let's take a look at each one of the regions. Here we see the West. That is the region that has California and all neighboring states. Notice that each region has 8 states associated to it. And then each region also has a bubble that you see there that says West 1, this bubble here. Here is where you place campaigners. And campaigners are these pieces that you have here that allow you to place influence cubes, or it's more like the cubes, power cubes, in states that belong to the same region. So in order to place those cubes, you have to have a campaigner in that particular region in order to place cubes in a state within that region. So that's the West there. Now let's take a look at the next region that you see here, and that is the Plains. That's the second region. The third region is the South. The fourth region is the Midwest. Fifth region is Atlantic and Appalachia. And finally, the sixth region is the Northeast. Okay, so those are the 6 regions that you see on the map. Now, the map has other elements. As I told you, the object of this game is to get the 19th Amendment approved by Congress, and the states have to ratify it. And it has to be 3/4 of the state. So in this particular game, there's going to be 2 factions, and this is a card-driven game. So you're going to have, for example, the suffragist faction, and the suffragists use these pieces here, and they start the game with these 4 campaigners off the map. They can have up to 4 campaigners on the map. They use these 2 types of colors, yellow and purple. And some cards will direct the player to place yellow or purple pieces, and some of a specific color. And the difference in color, what it represents is the different suffragist groups. Not all of them acted in a coordinated way, and the game sometimes reflects that. And so we have here Groucho. New Zealand is the first country that gave the right of vote to women in 1893, but before that, the women did vote in the East Coast American native tribes. Well, I didn't know that. Thanks for that tidbit there. Very interesting. So we have, these are the pieces that the suffragist player uses. Now, this is a card-driven game, and we see here the cards, and the cards, there's a deck of cards for each of the players. I like card-driven games that divide the decks between players instead of a shared deck. And here we see, for example, that there's an early deck, there is a middle deck, and of course, a late deck. And the way that the cards are arranged before play is you take, for example, the late deck and you shuffle it. Let's assume that it was thoroughly shuffled. I'm not a good shuffler, so. Then you take the middle deck and you place it on top of the late deck, and then you take the early deck and place it on top of the middle deck, and you have your deck ready. Now, there is a start card for each of the sides. Let's take a look at that card. And that card, in the case of the suffragist, is Seneca Falls Convention, and it adds a purple and a yellow campaigner in the Northeast region, and then you receive two, and that round symbol is buttons. Those are the buttons, campaign buttons, and you'll see the use for the buttons in the game. And you can place two purple or yellow cubes in New York. So that's the starting card for the suffragist player. Now, the other side is the opposition, and it uses these red, more orange than red pieces. We'll refer to them as red pieces. And you see they only have two campaigners, so they have less campaigners. And the game reflects, in a way, this asymmetry of having more campaigners on the suffragist side, the growing evolution, development, the growth of the suffragist movement. At the beginning of the game, you're going to see that most of the states have influence of the opposition, and that starts to wane away. So you have here the opposition's deck. You have early, middle, and late, and we do the same thing. We shuffle the late, shuffle the middle, place the middle on top of the late, place the early deck on top of the middle. Then here we have the start card, the patriarchy, and this adds one campaigner in the southern region. But look at the effect. You get 4 buttons compared to the 2 buttons that the suffragists receive at the beginning of the game, because we're starting in 1848. And then you add 1 cube in each state in the Northeast region, Atlantic and Appalachian, and South and Midwest regions. So it's practically most of the board, with exception of Plains and West. Those 2 regions is going to have 1 cube. So that's the card that they will have in their hand. So the first phase of the game during each turn is what is called the planning phase, and it's more planning in name than anything else. You take 1 card, and at the beginning of the game, it's the start card, and you add the top 6 cards from your deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you always have 7 cards in your hand, and here are the cards that we drew for the opposition player. Some cards are going to make you roll dice to see if the event takes place. And you see this one, beer brewers. It's only playable if the 18th Amendment is not into effect. So if the 18th Amendment is, you can't play this one for the event. Some direct you to place cubes. Some, in the case of the opposition player, direct you to remove cylinders from Congress. We'll talk about how Congress works in a little while. And you see the cards here. Okay. So let's talk about Congress. Here in this is the Congress display, this that you see here. And in order for the suffragists to have a chance to win, at the end of the 6 turns, this game has 6 turns, this has to be full. And each time, for example, the suffragist player plays an event that adds a cylinder, well, you place the cylinder there, but there are events on the opposition side, like this one here, Senator Joseph Brown, that make you remove a cylinder from the display. So this is going to be a battle, a game within the game, and the suffragist player has to make sure that before the game ends, that this display has all the cylinders on. And that means that Congress has passed the 19th Amendment and then has sent the bill to each of the states for the states either to ratify it or to reject it. And that is where there's another dimension to the game, and that is where all the cubes are now going to have their effect on the game, and you go to and you score at that time to see if any states have approved or rejected the amendment. And there's another phase in the game at the end that you go to final scoring if there are states that haven't decided. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let's take a look at the cards that also appear in the game, in addition to the strategy cards for each of the sides. There are also state cards and strategy cards. Now, these are 12 state cards, and at the beginning of the game, you shuffle the deck, and what you do is you flip the top 9 cards. Let's do that here. And those are the 9 states whose cards are going to be in play for the game. The remaining 3 cards will not have any effect in the game, and we place them to the side. So during the game, players can obtain these cards, which of course give them benefits. And to obtain one of these cards, a player must place 4 of his cubes in the particular state that the card refers to. So those are the state cards. But in addition to the state cards, there are strategy cards, and these work a little differently. At the beginning of the game, we flip 3 of these cards, and the rest form a deck. And these cards, the players can obtain them by bidding these buttons that we've been referring to up here. These are suffragist and anti-suffragist buttons. They're in different styles. The ones for the suffragists, and they simulate historical buttons that were actually used. This one votes for women. You got this one here. It's a man's world unless women vote. You have this other one here, but they're all the same. There's no different effect between them. And I've been showing, here we have votes for women. You have this colorful design. And you have this one that reads, let me see what this one reads. This one reads American Women's Suffrage Association, 1848, National American Women's Suffrage Association. So these are the suffragist buttons. And here we have the opposition buttons. And these are taken from actual buttons used in the campaign. So you can tell the suffragist is going to receive always more buttons than the anti-suffragist. So you can use buttons in this particular phase, which is the second phase, the strategy phase. The suffragist player announces that he or she is going to commit, let's say, 2 buttons to purchase one of these cards. And then the anti-suffrage, the opposition player, can say, well, go ahead, pay the 2. Or he can say, I'm going to match both, and he pays two of his opposition buttons, and then nothing happens. No card is given out. Or he can surpass the offer by one. He can say, I'm going to pay 3, and the opposition player takes one of the cards from here. So this is a way to increase the cards that you can play in the turn. Let's say that the opposition, that the suffragist player paid 3 buttons that were not opposed by the opposition player and received this card. So the suffragist player would place this card in front of him or her, and then during his turn or her turn, the suffragist player can play a card from the suffragist hand plus a strategy card. So that's the advantage of these extra strategy and state cards. You can play one of them in addition to your regular card. So it's like a double move. And the state cards, what they do is also provide benefits, but you have to have 4 tokens, 4 cubes on the state to win the card. So how do cubes get on the different states in the map? Let's talk about that. That is done in the operations phase. In the operations phase, a player can play a card. This is a card-driven game. You can play the card for its event. So let's say that the suffragists are going to play. They're going to play their start card, add a campaigner, purple and yellow, in the northeast region, right? So we add here in the northeast, we add the campaigners, and we place them in that bubble space there. The next thing that the card tells us is that you receive 2 buttons. So the suffragist player takes 2 buttons, can be of any style, doesn't matter, and puts those buttons in front of him or her. And then the other effect is that you add 2 cubes of any color, yellow or purple, in New York. So let's say that now the player will add those 2 cubes in New York. So there you go. So you add those 2 cubes there. And that would be the end of that turn. So that card goes to the discard pile. And that's it for that card. Let me see where I placed it. Okay. So now it would be the other player's turn, which is the opposition player. And we see here, let's take a look at the opposition player's hand. Let's say that opposition player is going to play the patriarchy, which is this card here. And this card adds 1 campaigner to the south region. So we place a campaigner there. And it also adds 4 buttons. So the player now takes 4 buttons. So we're going to take 2 and 2. We got 4 buttons. And then we see that the player, where is it? Oops, just a second. And the card also says that, hit the wrong button. You add 1 cube in each state in the northeast region. So have here the northeast region, and I'll be adding a cube to each one of these states. Do as quickly as I can. Here we have the cubes. 1. Notice that these are empty, those states, and now we go to New York, and this is the effect that adding a cube to a state where there are already opposing cube happens. And this is what is similar with 1960. There can never be cubes of opposing players in the same state. So the effect of adding a cube is actually eliminating one from the opponent. So we eliminate, let's say, the purple cube and our cube also. So that is the effect of placing one cube there. If we would have one extra cube, let's say that the card allowed us to play 2 cubes in any place, we could use the second cube then to eliminate the remaining suffragist cube. And let's say that we had 3 cubes, and after we eliminate this one, we still have 1 cube, then we place our first cube. So let's place it like it was here. Now, in order for anybody to be able to take a state card, like the ones that we saw, you have to have 4 cubes in a state. The instant that you place 4 cubes in a state, then you can pick up that state card like you see here. And it gives you some bonuses that then you can play this card during your turn in addition to the card from your hand. So that's how you obtain these state cards. Okay, so let's keep on placing now the cubes for the opposition player. It's let's see what the card said. It's where's the card? Just a second. Here's the card again. It's add. Okay, add in each state in the Northeast region, the Atlantic and Appalachia region. So that is the region over here. Let's do that quickly. And also, it also states Atlantic, Appalachia, Southern region, and Midwest region. So we got the South also here. And there's 8 states in each region. And we also have the Midwest region. So let's place some cubes here. So you can see at the beginning of the game, the opposition player is practically in control of all the states except the ones in the plains and the West. Of course, we're starting, this is 1848. So I think we have them all set up, and that would be the play of that card, and that card now goes to the discard pile. Now, continuing with the actions you can take, now the play would revert to the suffragist player. And the other type of action you can take is a campaigning action. And how does campaigning actions work? Well, that's where you have your campaigners. And in the case of the suffragists, they have both their campaigners here in New York. So if they don't move, they can campaign in any of the, well, they don't have their campaigners in New York. They have them in the Northeast bubble here. So that means that they're in the Northeast region. So they can campaign in any of those particular states. So let's say that the suffragist player decides to execute a campaign action. So the first thing is that the suffragist player needs to play a card. And let's say that they're going to play this card, but instead of playing it for the event, they're going to play it for a campaigning action. So the card is discarded. And then you roll a die for each campaigner that you have on the map, and then you assign a die to each campaigner. Now, this game brings a pretty interesting assortment of dice. You can see here. So the dice that we use are these dice. These are 12-siders, but they have the same result in 3 sides. So it's 1 to 4. So it's the equivalent of a D4. So let's say that we're going to roll these dice here. I don't have a tower, so I'm going to roll them around here. So let's roll those 2 dice because there's 2 campaigners. And we see that the result is a 2 and a 1, which is pretty, not very good. We could spend the suffragist player could spend one of these buttons to re-roll, but you would have to re-roll both dice. But they say, no, we're not going to spend a button here. So now you have to assign, let's say I'm going to assign a button, a die to each one of them. And of course, here it doesn't have any effect because you can recruit here 3 cubes in this region. But you could move one of these campaigners if you so wish. You could spend a button again to move a campaigner. So let's say that you spend this button in order for the yellow campaigner, right, to move to another region. So we say, let's move here to Appalachia, okay? So this campaigner will be rolling 2, will be adding 2 cubes, and the one in the northeast 1. So let's start with the one in the northeast, the purple campaigner. So the purple campaigner decides to place a cube here in Vermont. And as stated before, the effect of that would be that both the cube that you're placing and the opposition cube are gone. So that's the effect. So now Vermont is empty of cubes there. Okay? And we return the cube to the supply. And now we go to the Appalachia. Here you have 2 cubes. This one is here in Tennessee. So we're going to place 1 yellow cube here, but the same thing happens in Kentucky. There's an opposition cube, so this is gone. And let's say that the second cube is going to be placed there instead of placing it in another state that you would have to eliminate it together with the opposition cube. So there you go. And that's the turn for the suffragist player. And we just showed how the campaigning action works. Okay, so now it's the opposition player's turn. And there are other actions that can be taken here, which another action is an organizing action. So now it's the opposition player's turn here. Let me see where his cards are. Okay, here are the cards. Okay, so another action that the player can take is to play a card in order to conduct what is called as an organizing action. So you announce that you're going to play this card and you discard it. You don't play it for the event, and you play it for an organizing action. What that means is that for each campaigner that you have on the board, and you see that the opposition has 1 campaigner here, in the South, you can pick 1 button. You get 1 button. So we go and we take a button, and now the opposition has, I think they have 5 buttons. So they have a lot of buttons at the beginning. And that is the organization action. So now play reverts to the suffragist player, and now the suffragist player is going to conduct the other action that we haven't talked about, which is the lobbying action. And the lobbying action is the way that you increase the number of cylinders there in the Congress display. So the way that the lobbying action works is that you roll as many 6-sided dice as campaigners that you have on the map. So in this particular case, in order to increase the cylinders, which is none, we have to roll 2 dice because the suffragists have 2 campaigners and they need 6s, and they luckily rolled 1/6. Now, if they wanted, they could spend a button, but they would have to reroll both dice. So they're going to live with that 1/6, which is not bad. And we place one cylinder there. And the Congress has one cylinder. And remember that the opposition player has event cards like this one here, which, let's say that during their next turn, they just play this event card, Senator Joseph Brown. You remove from Congress one cylinder and add 2 cubes in Georgia. So you say for now, bye-bye to that cylinder. And in Georgia, the specific situation with Georgia is that there is 1 cube there. So now we add 2 more cubes. And Georgia's 1 cube away, the opposition player, from obtaining, let me see, is the Georgia card out? Well, the Georgia card is one of the 3 cards that didn't make it to the state display. So those are the, how do you call it, the actions that you can take in the game. Now, what happens, and we have New York Raider fan, and also Efren Sanchez. So we got today Jacobite Rising, #Jacobite. If you want to participate, still on time, okay? Okay, so you're going to see that players play cards to alternate playing cards, placing, taking away cubes. And what's going to happen is that players are also going to obtain these cards. And as I stated before, you can play during your turn 1 regular card, which are the ones that we've been showing, and then 1 of these state cards or strategy cards. This one in particular adds 6. If you are the suffragist player, 6 purple or yellow cubes, and it adds 6 red cubes in the West region, not more than 2 per state. And that's more or less some of the benefits that the player receives. And so you can play, it's like a double move, these cards, because you can play the card that you have in your hand plus the card that you obtain, either the state card or the strategy card. Now, eventually, you're going to see that some cards have effects when you play the cards for the rest of the turn, some for the rest of the game, and some are used in final voting. So let's take a look at some of those cards. For example, this card that I'm showing you here, which is a suffragist card, Processions for Suffrage. For the remainder of the turn, you roll 8 dice instead of 6 when taking a lobbying action. When you play a card like this, the game has a space, which is really nice because it serves as a reminder. And I played this game yesterday, and this is very useful because it alerts you at what cards are in effect. So you leave this card, and at the end of the turn, you remove it. And other cards have an effect for the rest of the game. Let me see if I can find one of those here. So you have, for example, this card, the 18th Amendment. You roll 1d6, and on a roll of 3 to 6, you add a cylinder to the congressional display and receive 2 buttons. And this card is in effect for the rest of the game because this is a card that is going to be a precondition. There's going to be cards that are going to say, if the 18th Amendment pass, then you can play X or Y card. And I'm trying to look for one of those. Let's see. I think those are basically, those are in the opposition player's deck of cards. For example, here we see one from the opposition player. This card has Cheers to No on Suffrage. Playable if 18th Amendment, is not in effect. This one is playable if it is not in effect. And other cards are playable if it is in effect. Okay. Now I can't find one, but there's one. There's a couple of these cards that create like prerequisites. And there's another one, which is the Civil War card. And so I guess you catch the drift. Those you play, those have an effect for the rest of the game. And then some cards have an effect on final voting, which is voting for the states, each of the states voting. And here we see, for example, the suffragist player rolls one 8-sided die instead of a 6-sided die during final voting. So you have a better chance of winning because you can get a 7 or an 8 when you compare it to the other player who's going to be rolling a 1d6. And this would have an effect on final voting. So you alternate playing turns, putting on cubes and taking off cubes. Eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to play 6 turns. And in the game yesterday, in turn 4, my wife, who was the suffragist player, placed the 6th cube, 6th cylinder on the display. And that caused Congress, obviously, to pass the 19th Amendment. At the instant that happens, and this is what we did wrong, you take a look at the map, and for instance, in any state that there are 4 cubes, that state is going to go for the side that has the cube. So let's imagine that there's 4 cubes in Arizona for the suffragist. You place this check marker there. Let's say also that there's 4 cubes in Utah. There's 4 cubes in Colorado, so forth. And if there are 4 cubes, like for instance for the opposition, like for example here in Georgia, you remove the cubes and you place an X, meaning that the 19th Amendment has been rejected. And you do that across the map. And what's going to happen is that you are going to have then the rest of the game, which are let's say this happened in turn 4. You're going to have the rest of the game, which is turn 5 and 6, to influence the remaining states, the ones that haven't voted on the 19th Amendment. And so the battle is more focused on those states. And eventually what's going to happen is that we reach the end of the 6th turn. So the marker is there. And then any state that does not have 4 cubes, while before turn 6, if any state achieves 4 cubes of one color, it goes and votes for that particular side. But any state that doesn't have 4 cubes, now we have to go into final scoring. And final scoring is done by rolling dice. And that was what was so interesting last night when we played. I won in the last state. I had 12 of these X's on the board. With 13, it's impossible for the suffragists to get 36. And the last one was Rhode Island, and I actually won on that die roll. But the way it works, let's say that we have this situation here. You have New York, right? There is, let's say there's, just to make this 2 cubes from the suffragist. That is a +2 die roll. So the suffragist would roll 1d6, and in this case, it's a 6 + 2, 8, and there's no way that I can, the opposition player can match it. So that particular state goes to the suffragist side, and you place this here. So now that was the suffragist. Now the opposition player chooses a state in which to resolve final voting. Let's say it's Pennsylvania. Let's say I have a +1 advantage, so I roll first. 5 + 1, 6. And then comes a suffragist player and rolls a 3. In that case, that state goes to the opposition, and we mark it with this cube. Now, some interesting things can happen during the game. You can also, if you're the suffragist player, you can use any of the buttons that you have, burn or use a button to re-roll the die. So and the same for the opposition player. In our game yesterday, the suffragist player had a ton of buttons, like 10 buttons. I didn't have any button at all, so she had that advantage. Now, there are some cards that give you an advantage of rolling here. For example, this card, voter registration, gives the suffragist player the ability of instead of rolling a 6-sided die during final scoring, you roll an 8-sided die. Now, in the game last night, I was playing the opposition. I had the similar card. I was rolling with 8 sides, 8-sided dice. So whenever I rolled a 7 or an 8, that's in almost every case, I would win the state, unless the state had cubes for the suffragist player. So you score each one of the states, and if the suffragist player obtains 36 states with the check mark, the suffragist player wins. If the opposition player, the instant that the opposition player gets 13 X's, that is that the 19th Amendment has been rejected, the opposition player wins. And it was very interesting last night, very exciting. It went to the last state, and it was Rhode Island, and I won, but we played it wrong, one rule wrong. So I had a really good time with the game. The game also has a version that you can play with 2 suffragist players, and it has a deck of cards which you use for the opposition. These are the deck of cards, Opabot. So you see these cards have an effect here that you play for the opposition if the opposition plays a card like this. And when you're playing with the AI, then you use the cards that you have here in the deck, and then some of the cards have readings, I think, for the Opabot. Now I can't see them. Well, I can't see them here. Well, maybe no, these are the cards. Okay, you don't use those cards. You use these cards for the Opabot, and you play your regular cards here because you're the suffragist, so there's not going to be a reading, of course. So these are the opposition bot cards, which basically many are the same that you see in the other deck, but with slightly different effects. So that is basically the game. The game also brings an assortment of historical documents, which I found was a nice touch about the women's suffragist movement. And you have stuff like this. These are some historical documents, and brings a lot of them. New Southern Citizen, and you have documents on both sides of the issue here. Yeah, and all in different shapes and colors. Let me see, this is some other stuff. You have a specimen ballot. So this is a nice touch. Here we have 66 Congress of the United States joint resolution proposing an amendment. So this would be 19th Amendment. Here we have another one. Let's see, oh, I think this is a particular case in the Northern District of New York. Susan B. Anthony. Indictment for illegal voting. Oh boy. And you have more Equal Franchise Society. There's a lot of these. I was amazed at just the number of Standard Guano Company. And we all know what guano is. Here we have American Constitutional League. Here we have even one in Spanish, in California, giving the right to vote to women. Why? And it's back printed. A lot of stuff. Here we have the anti-slavery bugle. Boy, I was impressed by all this stuff. It's a lot. And here you have a copy of the New York Times. This is August 15, 1920. And of course, you have the rule book. Here's the rule book. The rule book is in full color. And all the rules are there. We played the game wrong because I forgot that little detail. I didn't have to look up anything. Everything was complete. You have how the game is set up, sequence of play. You have particular situations, sending the 19th Amendment to the states, adding, removing cubes, claiming state and strategy cards, and how to use the buttons. And then you have the final voting procedure, playing with 2 suffragist players, which is 2 live suffragist players, and here playing with 2 opposition players. That one I forgot that existed here. And managing the Oppobot, that is the AI that controls the opposition. So a very nicely done production. And then you have another book that is a historical supplement and designer notes by Tory Brown. So very, very well done. The quality is top-notch. And finally, this is a telegram. Okay. So that is all I have for today with Votes for Women by Fort Circle Games, designed by Tory Brown. And so let's go now to our, our giveaway. We got Eric from Eric's Table, Soviet Hammer, and we have something Ori. Is that the way you? And of course, Alan Salazar. Check marker in Colorado is right. Okay, so down in a hole. Okay, so let's go to the share screen. Let's do the giveaway. And let's go to share screen here. And I'm going to take Votes for Women out. And since we're giving away Jacobite Rising, it is only proper, right, that we place it here in the insert. So there it is. So we got a total of 18 entries for Jacobite Rising, okay? So here we go. Good luck. Let's see who wins. And the winner of Jacobite Rising by Compass Games is Octavian. Octavian in YouTube. Okay, Octavian. Okay, remember, Octavian, write to me at stukajoe@gmail.com. stukajoe@gmail.com, giving me your handle, which is Octavian, and your mailing address. I'm going to send you a specific word, a confirmation code, and then you write it in the comment of this video. And I do that to make sure that it is this Octavian that wins the game and not somebody pretending to be Octavian. And I have to do it that way because of the way these we're doing the the giveaway. So congratulations, and let's go back to the table. So that's Jacobite Rising. It's going Octavian's way. So let's move it out of the way. And today we're gonna do another giveaway. And if you've been following the channel, and I have this on the table, I won't be able to clear it, but let me just show you. When I went to the Bellota Con, there was a game that was given to all the participants of the Bellota Con, which I'll show you now, which is called El Camino Español. Okay, it's this game. And that's going to be our next giveaway. So let me put the keyword here. For El Camino Español, it's hashtag Spanish. So let me just put it here. I have to type it in the giveaway tool. Just a second. I'll be right with you guys. And it'll collect just a second here. Here we go. Okay. So congratulations to Octavian again. And now we're going to give out a copy, and it's a specific, let's say, custom copy of the game, because the game is, as you see, it's a folio game. I'll be opening up in a little while. So for this one, I have to type in the word Spanish. Hashtag Spanish to participate. I'll show you the components. And so here it is. It's a folder. This is what everybody, the 375 participants, got at the BellotaCon. And if you are familiar with games by Against the Odds magazine, this is more or less, the postcard games are in this material. They're not as big as this. And then they have the counters on the edge, and you have to cut the counters or paste them. So I'm going to place them here. Let me make some space here. And I'll be picking this up. Let's place it here. So this is the map. And what I did is I took the pieces and I photocopied and laminated them. Here are the pieces. And the object of this game, for those of you who don't know, is to take a Spanish army, which in this case, let's say we take the one commanded by Espinola, and it starts here in Lombardy, and you have to move it through these regions, and it has to reach Flanders. But of course, there's all kinds of perils associated with moving the army through enemy territory. The first thing you notice is that these yellow lines that connect Lombardy, for example, with the Swiss Confederation, those are passages through the Alps, and you have to roll for attrition, and that's why they're in yellow. And this number that you see here is the modifier that you have to apply whenever you roll for attrition. And we'll take a look at the attrition table here. Here we have the attrition table, attrition roll. So you see what happens is if you roll 1d6 and you roll 3 or more, you're going to lose strength. Your army is going to lose strength. So let's say you roll 1d6 and we have to add a +1. In that case, we were lucky. 1 + 1 is 2. So we're lucky, but let's suppose another instance, you roll a 6 + 1, that is a 7. So you would reduce your army strength by 2. And the army strength is reflected here in this track. And we keep track of army strength by placing the corresponding marker there. See if I can find it. I'm just tilting over here it is. At the beginning of the game, it's 7, and it may go down. And the only way you can increase your strength again after taking losses in battle or taking losses in attrition is by receiving reinforcements. And remember that the reinforcements come from Lombardy. So let's say that your army got here to Württemberg, right? And you want to roll for reinforcements, so you have to also roll here to see if you receive reinforcements. And we have a Spanish reinforcement table here. If taken from outside of Lombardy, and look at the situation, it's 2 or less, no effect, you receive them. But then there's a +1 if you need 3 or more. No effect means you don't get anything. 3 or more to get a reinforcement. There's a -1 per region between the Spanish army and Lombardy, which following the shortest route without any enemy armies. So in this particular case, let's say that is the case here. We have 1, 2 regions. So we have a -1, 4 per region between the Spanish and Lombardy. So we would have -2 there to worry about. So you're going to say, well, that's pretty bad, because the more you advance, the higher that negative modifier is going to be. But you can mitigate it if you have Spanish road markers built. And those Spanish road markers are these. But you also have to roll on a table to see if you build them. But let's say you were able to build one here in the Swiss Confederacy, so you only have a -1 to worry about. So you roll to see if you receive the reinforcement. And let's say you roll, in this case, 4 -1, 3. It was 3 or more. So you receive the reinforcement, and that means that your strength goes now from 4 to 5. So those are the kind of things that you have to worry about. That's the way the game recreates supply. You also, when you are approaching a space that has fortification, like this Swiss Confederation, you have to roll for attrition, and you also have to roll a logistics roll to see if you make the move. And if you roll a 2 or less, no move is made. So you got to be very careful when you move. I'm not going to go into all the details, but armies are going to pop out. They're going to move also on their own. The way that armies move is also determined by a die. There comes a phase in the game where armies have to move, and you have to roll a die, and you see the possible results. 3 through 6, it moves to Württemberg. 5 to Alsace, and 6, it moves to the Lower Palatinate. So you would roll a die, and in this particular case, the roll is a 5. So the army would move to Württemberg, and you move the army there. And so you move the 4 or 5 armies that there are on the board. This is a Protestant army, and you see that the Protestant armies have 6 pips, meaning that if they fight you in a battle, say you fight in a battle here, then you would roll the number of dice that your strength marker has here, and the Protestants would roll the number of dice that they have. So let's say, and battle is simultaneous, so we have to roll 5 dice, and you hit on pairs of 5s and 6s, and you can combine 2 5s, 2 6s, a 5 and a 6. So let's say we're going to fire, and we're going to roll. We roll 5 dice for our strength, but Spinola has a little dot there, meaning that's his battle rating of 1. He adds 1 more die. So we roll 6 dice. And let's see how many 5s and 6s. We got there 3 5s and a 6. So we have 2 pairs of 5s and 6s. So that is 2 hits. So that is simultaneous. So we scored 2 hits. Remember that. And now the Protestants fire back, and they roll actually 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They roll 5 dice. So let's roll for the Protestants. And they roll 1 pair. So that is just 1 hit. So we are reduced by 1 because they actually hit us once. So now we're at 4, but we won the battle, so they are eliminated because they received more hits than we did. But you see now that we lost 1 strength there, and strength is important because you have to keep on moving, and you got to reach Flanders, and you have to reach Flanders within a specific amount of time. You have here the possible difficulty levels. So at the beginning of the game, you decide if it's going to be difficult. You have 10 turns to reach Flanders. And medium setting is 12, easy 14. So you can select your difficulty level. And there's other particularities that I'm not going to go into right now. I'm planning on doing a playthrough, maybe live, maybe edited soon, because there's some people are interested in having this game being shown to a wider audience, so I'm happy for that. So that is basically, in a nutshell, the Spanish Road. And this is a game designed, this particular game by Daniel Hernandez Iniesta. And Daniel is designing a game on the 30 Years' War by NAC War Games. And that is in the P500 for NAC War Games. So that is basically the Spanish Road. So let's go now to, you like the dice graphic? Thank you. It saves me the trouble of bringing a dice tower and moving the camera around. Okay. Yes. And Efrain, you're right. It is a Euro game with all those cubes and the color rule book. Yeah. So, okay. So let's see. Okay, everybody who wants to participate, I will be giving out the game with these custom graphics. It's the game. The game is this, but you'll get the armies are mounted on these wooden cubes. You have the counters, informational counters on these wooden tiles. And these are the events. There's also a random events table, and this is like a tile, like a reminder of the event. So there's 6 of those events that can happen on the event table. And then you'll also get this player aid that I made in English, because this game, the rules that are within the folio are in Spanish. So you get this player aid in English, and you get this second player aid with more tables, also in English. Here you have the victory point schedule. How do you earn victory points? And if you win, what kind of victory you get? And then, of course, the rules, which are in English. And these are 7 pages of rules. You can download these add-ons. They're in BGG, but the game, the folio with the map, is not yet available, but I think they're going to make it available soon. So this is 7 pages of rules. And of course, I'm going to send it in a nice little package. Not this mess. I just wanted to show you. So let's go now. Let's share the screen and go to our drawing for the Spanish Road. Okay, so here we go. And good luck to everybody. And the winner of the Spanish Road is E4 Airman. Congratulations, E4. You are the winner. So you know the drill. It's write to me at stukajoe@gmail.com. And E4 Airman, give me your address. And on Monday, I'll be sending both games. On Monday. So that's going to be next Monday. And thanks to everybody for participating. Let me see if my mouse wants to work now. Apparently my mouse, okay. Okay, here we are. So thanks to everybody for showing up in the first place, because I didn't even announce this one because the internet service was out for the whole day. So I want to thank each and every one of you. And we've been on for 1 hour and 16 minutes. So I think that's going to be it for now. Next week, my hope is that I'll be showing you that game, Land and Freedom, Spanish Civil War game, very unique in terms of mechanics. And it shows you the perspective of the Spanish Civil War entirely from the Republican side. The nationalists, which are called the fascists in the game, are controlled by an AI. The 3 players are on the Republican side, the anarchist, the communist, and you have also the, which are the other ones? The anarchist, forgot the other ones. The anarchist, the communist, and the moderates. Okay. And you are fighting against the nationalists, which are the fascists in the game, and you're trying to survive, win the war, but they're also backstabbing each other and trying to win the game. And historically, that was one of the reasons the nationalists won, is because they had so many things that were not in common. The side on the Republican side, that they could not even get along. That sometimes there was infighting at times. You had anarchists fighting communists while the war was going on. So it's a very unique conflict, and I think the game captures those dynamics of the Republic during the war, which many of the games in the Spanish Civil War don't capture. You just have rules that you can't stack certain units with other units, and that's basically it. But here you go into more nitty-gritty detail. So I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up, and I will be seeing you in the next live bond run. I may be doing unannounced live streams during the week, so stay tuned. And like I always say, this is Stuka Joe signing off for now. Thanks for watching.